Well, I got a package from Xestray's Combatants Fight for Glory. I'm very excited to finally get this. Let's check it out. So this is from Xestray's. They do a line of gladiators. Basically, it's right there in front of you. Combatants Fight for Glory. Yeah, it's an exclusive, but this is the figure of Gold Hildr. I pre-ordered her. Uh, I think it was maybe summer of last year, maybe a little bit earlier. I don't know, sometime. But it's finally here, and we gotta check her out. So here's Gold Hildr out of the sleeve. It says exclusive. I'm not sure which convention she was an exclusive to, but she then became available on either 5K Toys or BBTS. I didn't know which one to order from. They were about the same price, so I did get mine from BBTS. But here's Xesray Studios, Combatants, Fight for Glory, Gold Hildr. Here's the figure in the package. You can see some of her accessories. The others are behind her. Event 2025. Here's a picture of the figure. Another picture of the figure. Here's a little bit of a close-up of her story. You can pause it if you want to read it. Combatants Fight for Glory. Here's Xesray Studios again. Their socials, barcode. But yeah, also says warning, small parts. So yeah, don't try to eat these, especially if you're under 3 years old. So we have Hildr out of the package. Figure so far looks awesome. Here's her helmet, her battle axe, and her fur coat, which is nice soft goods. There is a little note here that just basically tells you to use warm water or whatever before you either take her apart or uh, change the hands or whatever. And here is the tray that was beneath her. Comes with a smaller axe, a sword with its sheath, a knife, some other hands, and even another pair of feet. There's a lot of detail in Hildr's outfit, and Xesray Studio usually does a awesome job with the detailing in their figures, even in her face. Just the look, pretty much he's like, yeah, don't mess with me, or I'll mess you up. But the details in her hair is pretty awesome. Looks like there's some washes in the hair, so it's not just one flat color. The detail here in the back of her hair is pretty awesome. It is kind of soft. It's not a hard plastic. The detail in her arm gauntlets are nice. And, these looks like fur, but it's just hard plastic. The brass around her belt, gauntlets, even the armband is nice. This is floating, so it can come off. And these are also the gauntlets here can be removed, and nice detailing in her top and her necklace. This armband has a nice lot of detailing here, and this can also be removed. And some of the detailing here, like I said, they do a great job in their figures. Look at that detail in this armor here, and the fur, that the awesome texture they do here, different washes, little chainmail. This will be somewhat annoying to me, just, the floating skirt piece or whatever you want to call it, because it just moves a lot. But I'm sure once you get her into a pose, it'll be fine. And this little strap here that has, uh, I guess, teeth or whatever from creatures that she has beaten, defeated, or killed. A little bit of chainmail here, and some of the weathering here in this metal area is nice. This gauntlet definitely has some nice weathering, some washes, and the spikes, pretty cool. And even, the leather work and, all around is nice. And the boots, you got, they are definitely, different. This one has armor here on this leg wrapped around with some leather, but the metal here, again, some nice details. This has a little bit of brass here, some straps around this leather part of the boot. Uh, the straps around her feet are nice, and even the detail on her feet. But I kind of feel sorry for her if she's walking around in the snow and cold. Her little toesies, could get blue, and she can get frostbite. And getting back here, she does have a sheath for the knife and some more detailing in the back. So again, Xesray knocks it out of the park with their detail. What I probably will do is I'm going to remove, parts of her armor and whatnot to get a better look at her articulation. So I'm taking a little pause here. I pretty much already got Hildr taken apart. But while I was taking her apart, I realized something, and I want to point that out to you guys. And uh, I was also watching a couple of reviews, and one of the people that I was watching this actually happened to. Fortunately, it didn't happen to me, although it almost did. When you're trying to remove all these pieces, I already kind of knew that I was going to have to take this top part off. Um, but I thought that the crotch area and the lower abdomen area were two pieces, and they're not. This is one whole piece, and there is a joint um, that connects the two legs into the body. And if you're not careful, if you're holding on to the legs and you're trying to pull whatever you think might be here off, you could actually rip the peg that's holding it's like a T peg that's inside the lower body that's attached to the legs. And you could actually, if you pull too hard, you'll pull out the peg. But here in the bikini area, there's a little thin piece of plastic. Let me see if I can show it to you guys a little bit better. But you might be able to see a little bit of plastic right here under the bikini area. If you pull too hard, you could actually break that. Like I said, one of the guys that I watched, he actually did break his. And then he said he's going to try to glue it or whatever. But he was one of those other people that bought a lot of the Hildr figures to make other custom barbarians or whatnot. But yeah, I just want to take a little pause and talk about that. Um, One other cool thing, I didn't realize it just kind of came off by accident, but it totally makes sense because she does come with the helmet. And the top part of her head here, this comes off. So you could put the helmet on. And even like this, she almost looks good, but she does have a little hole in the top of her head. So, if you're going to take the top of her hair off, uh, make sure you put on the helmet. But yeah, so that was a cool little happy accident to find there. But let's get her, I'll straighten that out here in a minute, but let's get her all put together so we can kind of get a better look at her articulation. And now here we have Hildr pretty much relieved of all of her armor and the little leather skirt that had the chainmail. I also, changed out her feet. So another thing, if you haven't messed with Xesrays, and I showed you guys close to the beginning, you want to heat up some of the things if especially if they seem tight or whatever. When I was messing with her earlier, um, nothing really seemed too terribly tight, but when I was trying to put the other feet on, just in case, I did use my little heat gun. Just gave it a little bit of heat so it would be able to attach pretty easily. So, whether you use hot water, I wouldn't recommend boiling water, just, hot, or a hair dryer, or heat gun. Just make sure it's at a low temperature and you don't have it too close to the end of the heat gun. Any of those should work. But, overall, she's looking great. I would consider this almost her level one look, before she gets any armor, any upgrades, or whatever. Um, but if you're familiar with a lot of Xesray's figures, she is my first human figure, but a lot of the articulation is very much similar. Uh, she has a little bit of up, but again, because of the hair, she does have, pretty good down. I don't, she has pretty good tilt so far. Um, the arms will go all the way around, no problems. And it'll come up, do a T pose pretty easily. There isn't the conventional bicep swivel. And you can see here the arm is attached to a ball, which has a peg at the end. And a lot of like Xesray's other creature figures, there is like a little tiny butterfly joint. It doesn't really do a lot, but you know there is some range of motion, but not a whole lot. Uh, with the butterfly, it's more with the ball in the shoulder joint. But both arms have come up pretty well, and the hands are on like a universal swivel peg, so you can definitely get all different kinds of motion, and you can definitely twist it. When I switch out the other hands, I'll make sure I kind of eat up those other hands to make sure they attach pretty easily. Somewhat reminds me of SH Figure Arts. There is like a double elbow joint so you can get it past 90. There is a swivel at the elbow also, which is good. The upper body, again, this is one solid piece here. So all the twisting is going to come from the upper body, and it's kind of tight. You don't get a whole lot of twist. You can maybe somewhat force it, but I don't want to do that. She has pretty good back bend, a little bit, not much of a forward type crunch, but the articulation's not too bad. With the legs, it'll only come up a little bit of the way, and it comes out about this much, and not a whole lot of back. There is that double knee joint that if she's not wearing the boot part, it can come up a little bit more than it would with it. There's no thigh swivel. You get a little bit in the joint here in the hips, but yeah, no real thigh swivel. No real swivel at the calf. It's all solid here. The foot can come down about this much, comes up about that much, and it will pivot. And what would be cool, in my opinion, is if there was some kind of toe hinge. I just like my figures coming with the toe hinge. But overall, I think her articulation's decent. And she's basically my first real figure of 2025. I don't know if she would be a contender for best figure or top 5 or top 10 at the end of this year, but we'll have to wait and see because there's a lot of time for other figures to come out. But I think I'm going to throw back on some of her armor, and let's check out with some of her accessories. Here we have Hildr pretty much back together again with pretty much most of her armor parts. The only thing that I left out was the little band with all the little teeth type trophies. I kind of have an idea for what I might use that with. I'll explain that here in a little bit. One of the things that Hildr does come with, which is pretty cool, is this nice little backdrop that you can use if you want to do a photo of her, like a portrait style photo. That's pretty cool. Let's take a closer look at some of her weapons. Here we have a closer look at her battle axe. The detailing is nice. The pitting and the blade, it's a nice detail, a little bit of weathering in it. The wood area has that fake wood grain, which looks nice, and the brass end, pretty nice touch of detail on the straps where they give it a nice leather look. Looks pretty cool. And then even some of the bolts there on the axe head to make it appear like it's fully attached to the wooden piece. But yeah, the detail on this is pretty nice. Xesray Studio does a great job in their detailing of weapons. Here's a nice close-up view of her helmet. Again, nice detail and weathering on the metal parts, and the intricate details around here near the cheek area is pretty nice. The spikes on the head is cool. The horns, they actually look like they could be from an animal. And then the brass band that's on this horn has some nice detail in it also. So yeah, I'll put the helmet on her in a little bit, but the detail on this thing is pretty awesome. Looking at her other accessories, here's her other axe. Again, this has some nice weathering in the blade, some nice pitting in the metal area. The straps, again, looks like leather, and the wooden handle, has that nice wooden treatment that makes it look like it's real wood. But yeah, this is a nice, the nice touches that Xesray does on their weapons is pretty awesome. And here's a look at her sword, one-handed, fighting sword. Not really familiar with this type of blade. It could be focus. It could be somewhat Celtic or Germanic, um, but still nice detail in it. The wraps, again, have that leather look, and then the big ring at the end of the handle. Uh, I don't really see a whole lot of weathering in the sword. It has that nice groove in the middle on the blade, when you kind of poke somebody, and it allows all the crimson liquid to flow out a lot easier. But yeah, the detail in this is nice. Here's the sheath. Again, a lot of nice detail. The brass at the both ends looks nice, and towards the here, you know, very nice. The straps, again, like, looks like leather, and then the sheath itself has a nice little texture to it. Also, it is very flexible. Where the weapons are very rigid, uh, they don't really have a lot of give to them, but the sheath does. And let me get this flipped around. There's a nice little peg right here that plugs into her little strap on the left side, that's right above where the chainmail is. I think it has a particular way it plugs in, but I'll find out here when I attach it. And the last of our weapons is this little knife here. Again, leather wrap around the handle. This will go into the sheath that's on her back. But yeah, some nice detail, not a whole lot of weathering. So I was able to get most of the accessories on Hildr. Uh, I was having a little bit of issues trying to get the sheath onto the little belt, but hand issues. Again, a lot of things are kind of difficult for me with my hands. So I have a friend coming over tomorrow, and I'll just ask him to put it on. So a couple other things that Hildr does come with are these real soft goods. Uh, I don't I don't think it's real, fur type. One is bigger, the other one is a little bit smaller, so she can wear one where it's just across her shoulders, around her back and neck. It does come with the buttons. I'm not sure what Xesray Studios sewing is like, so hopefully when I snap the button close, I'll be able to open it and not have it rip out. But here's the other one. So there's the one button, and then there's to close it. But this one is basically, it's pretty big, will cover most of her body. So It's pretty nice. Uh, would have been cool if there was a little bit of wire in it, but I'm still okay with this. So standing here, she is pushing about the 6.5 inch mark. So you can definitely get her in with some Marvel Legends or Black Series or G.I. Joe Classified. She would probably seem to be somewhat towering over them. If you try to put her with, I guess, Mythic Legions or DC Universe figures, she might somewhat be in scale because those are usually closer to 7 inches. Here's Hildr standing next to Marvel Legends Black Widow and Rachel Summers. See how she towers over them? Here we have Hildr next to G.I. Joe Classified's Baroness and Zorana. And here's Hildr standing next to a couple other characters from the Xesray Studios Combatants Fight for Glory. Yeah, I like how these guys look. They're huge. They should look like they're towering over whoever they're fighting. So, yeah, I think this looks awesome. It'll make for some interesting photographs. So I think this figure is awesome. Xesray Studio definitely knocked it out of the park with Gold Hildr. I am definitely stoked that she finally made it and that I have her. You can get her into a lot of different poses, and she comes with a variety of accessories, which is great. She her price point wasn't too bad. You can try to look for her on BBTS. I think she is sold out there. I tried looking on 5K Toys, and she can't be found there. You could try looking for Xesray Studio. I think they might have a website. If they do, I'll pin a link to their website in the comments. But yeah, she is awesome. She looks great. She has that California 10 going. And that was one of the things that slightly struck me as weird, was just how dark her skin was. When you read her bio, it's she comes from way up north near the Germanic area, but she also, with her backstory, would fight in combat with other gladiators. So maybe she spent a lot of time in the sun. So, but overall, I mean, I'm okay with it. She looks great. Definitely has that look like do not mess with me, or mess around and find out. But yeah, she's great. Definitely happy to have her. Again, if you are able to find her, just check her joints, see if her arms and legs and all that are tight. If they are, maybe warm her up a little bit in either warm water, use a hair dryer, or like you saw me, well, you didn't see me, but I do have a heat gun and I had it on a low setting. That way you don't risk breaking her. And one of the things I do like about this figure is, if you try to push her articulation to some extreme, instead of breaking some of the joints like in the shoulders, they will pop out and you can just pop them right back in. But I don't really have any complaints or nitpicks. I just really like the figure. Let me know if you picked her up also. What are your thoughts about her? But there is another figure that Xesray Studio is going to be releasing relatively soon. And her name is Bernice. She's also a gladiator. I didn't look at her backstory yet. And I think it's a 2.0 Bernice. And Xesray Studio knocks it out of the park with, a lot of their figures. And I heard a lot of good things about their female figures. Their male combatants looks pretty good too. But I'm happy with what I got. I don't know if I'm going to get any of the male figures. But that's basically going to do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, give it a like. If you notice, I'm getting close to 1,000 subs. So if you're new here, I would appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. Also, hit that notification. It'll let you know when I post a video. If you look in the description, you'll see links to my various social media. I'll post stuff there that I don't normally post stuff on YouTube. But I definitely had fun checking out Gold Hildr. She's awesome. Simo says, collect what you like. Be awesome to one another. Until the next video, I'll see you later.